everybody, and welcome back to another tutorial of mine. You know, presents you practically need all year around. Doesn't matter if it's a birthday, it's Mother's Day, it's Christmas, it's Easter, you need a present. And you'd like to maybe give a present that you made yourself, because that's really personal. So here I got the ideal idea for you. English language is not so easy, believe me. I could say it much easier to you in German. Alright, so what did I do? I took 2 leftover pieces of material, a lining, but you can use any other material you got lying around, and I took a piece of lace. Well, actually, it's not really lace, it's actually from a little curtain that I had. And from these 2 pieces that I have left over, I made this little clutch. It's not fastened with any ribbon. I put 2 little magnets inside there, which holds the clutch together. It looks nice on both sides. I added on the edges, on the corners, a little bit of width, so you can put a little bit more in than usually in a clutch. And I made a tiny little pocket even inside to put maybe the credit card in, or what you got left over to put in that pocket. So, little presents are always good for anybody, and maybe I'll give you an idea to do something like this first for you, and when you enjoy doing it, for all your girlfriends. Here we go. So, what exactly do you need to do this little clutch? First of all, cut your lining or a satin material or any material of your choice. The length of this particular part that I cut is 84 centimeters completely. As I don't have the camera so wide, I can't really open it, but it's 84 long and it's 28 centimeters wide. On half of it, approximately, I'm going to put a little bit of flizzoline in, which gives it a little bit of strength for the purse and doesn't make, it's not so floppy then. Anyway, then you need to cut the lace, whichever one you have. Well, I can tell you this lace that I got here, it's actually been a curtain, which I don't use anymore. Tiny little curtain. It originally looked like that completely, but as I only need in my length 42 centimeters, I cut this off, and I need 28, so I repeat, 42 long, 28 wide. But this little piece I will add onto here in a moment when we start the sewing, because that gives it an extra little effect there. So those are your 2 main parts, the lining, the satin material, and this particular piece. But if you say, oh, I'd like to have a little pocket inside, I've got to put my Visa card somewhere or any other card, then cut another piece of the lining or whichever material you've chosen. And this should maybe be 15 by 20 centimeters you cut, but you can make it smaller or bigger, no problem. And I like to give a little bit of width in the side and the pocket in. So therefore I cut 2 little stripes. They're each 8 centimeters wide and 17 centimeters long. Now to fasten this, you can use any kind of cordle or make yourself a tape from your lining material, from your satin, to tie it up. Or you can use my choice. I got these tiny little magnets here, which you just stick inside the positions where you want them, and your purse will always stay nicely close. So that is actually the only cutting you need to do. That means even for a starter, that's quite a nice little thing to do. And as I said before, you do not need to put an extra pocket in. That one you could leave out. And you do not need to put the side bits in. Then, if you do it like that, it's very, very, very simple, and any starter could do this particular clutch. So, let's get started. On my sewing machine, I will start by preparing some of the lining parts. This is this little pocket I mentioned I'm going to do,
And I will stitch together first of all by putting the long sides on top of each other, and I will close 3 sides, and on one of the 3 sides that we're closing, we're going to leave one hole for turning this piece inside out. My allowance on my seams is 1 centimeter, so that's exactly the amount I'm stitching now. Here on the bottom, which I will choose as the bottom, I leave a little hole, and I continue on the other 2 parts until I get back up there to my fold. I slightly cut the corners a little bit off. On those other corners it's not necessary because that lining is very thin. So I turn it inside out, and I try to really push the corners exactly in the right angle as I stitched it as well, and prepare it in this way to be ironed next. All 4 sides, all 4 corners nicely pushed in position. So that's ready for my ironing so far. Now I take these little pieces which I like to make the purse wider with. One of the long edges of each part I already cleaned off with my overlock, and you only need to do this on one side. And I ironed on the short sides a small centimeter over, but now I lie it over another 8 millimeters or so. It's not a full centimeter, it's a little bit less, and I stitch it, and the same I have to do on the other 3 short bits. I ironed once over, and then I fold it over once more, so it's a finished clean edge on all 4 short corners. So you fold it over twice in the width you allowed for your cutting and how far you like to fold it over. Same on this last one. I stitch along that edge so they're prepared as well to be once ironed again. Now I first of all take this extra bit that I had left over from my curtain, which I cut off because it would have been too long otherwise. And all I do is now put it edge on the cut edges, and only stitch it on to be held on as if it is one piece then with the other part. This got to be less than a centimeter because I do not want this seam to show out later when we stitch it together with the lining. This is only to put this in position all the way through to the end. Nice and smooth and easy. And now, first of all, I gotta go to my ironing. Alright, I'm back from my ironing board, and first of all I take my big lining now, my lining piece, and I cut exactly on the lengths in the middle. I make a little cut on both sides, because now first of all you put the right side from the lining against the left side from your lace, and you turn it over. Now you see you got exactly 1/2 of the lining laid together with your lace part. And now I stitch exactly through the middle from the lining. I stitch this piece of lace on top. That is the reason why I put a little cut on each side of the lining. And I just go along that bottom edge, as this will be my finished edge already for this clutch. If you have the lining lying on the bottom, make sure you're holding it tight or use a template to stitch over, so it's really flat and you're not getting any widths in one of the parts in. That is very important for this particular step and here for the beginning. So this has got to lie nice and flat, and here you can see that is the finished edge already from the clutch, which will fold over the top later on. Now it's time to find the right position for the magnets that we like to add. There's of course different possibilities, but first of all you got to see where you like to fold it over. In my case, I want to fold this over on 15 centimeters and then fold the top, the finished edge, down. That's what it looks like on the left side, and that's what it looks like on the top. The finished top comes over there. So I marked these 15 centimeters for the fold over. Now I fold this apart. There's the stitch you've just done on the to stitch those together. It's a total finished edge. We don't need to do anything else with that later on. And now you got two possibilities. You can put it on the right side that you see or on the left side. So these are my two little magnets. I got this flat part and the actual magnet part, this round little magnet there. And I will first of all stitch on or put on the flat part. Therefore I just take some sticky tape, big enough to go over both edges from this little flat magnet. And I look where I like to put it. You could put it on that side as an example. Put it in that position that you've chosen. Think about and consider that you still have to stitch a 1 centimeter seam away. Or on the other side, which I actually prefer or recommend to you, because first of all you got the interfacing ironed onto there, so the material is a little bit thicker and stronger. So measure how low you want it. The position is really up to you. My measurements here were about 3 centimeters from the finished part and 4 centimeters to the cut side, which is not finished yet. Now what's very important, you have to put the lace out of the way. That should not be underneath. There you do not want to stitch over. So you got this sellotape there. So you stitch onto the sellotape, because you can't stitch through this metal plate that you got there. That's not possible. You could do a tiny little pocket where you put it in, but that makes the magnet a little bit weaker than for working. So again, I take my other flat part, the lace underneath I put out of the way already because I do not want to stitch over it. I take my little tape there, my sticky tape, put it half and half onto this flat part and put it in the position 3 from the top seam and 4 to my cut side edge. I stick it on and I just on both sides put a couple of stitches onto it, over it, so they're held in position. That's so good so far. Now, as I said, you could have also put it on the other side, but here you see that you do not see him because of the interfacing. You don't see the stitching, nothing. That's why do not stitch through the lace, put it out of the way. So the next job is to find the exact position where you would like to put this inner pocket if you want to make one. Always put this purse, this clutch, into the position again how it's going to be when you're totally finished with it. So you can always see if you're doing it right. So if I fold this over, as you saw before, on my 15 centimeter, that is the position where I want to put this little inner pocket. The fold over edge I will leave for the top, where I'm going to leave it open. Then I measure that I have approximately the same width on both sides. In my case, that's 7.5 on each side. And I try to be more or less even from the top. But you can put some pins in or a couple of big stitches before you will stitch it on with your sewing machine. And make sure you stay away from the bottom where the purse later on will be folded over. Otherwise your little pocket, your inner pocket, would be squashed over. That you wouldn't like either. So just with a small 1 millimeter seam, I go around those 3 pockets, those 3 sides. That also means that the hole that I left on the bottom is automatically being closed on this pocket. So that is finished as well. Again, put it in the position as it will be later on finished for you. Keep on checking that, because then you do not make a mistake. That's folded over, and there is your little pocket where you can put anything nicely in. Now, we have to continue with the little side bits, which I prepared, as I told you. And the side that I cleaned off with the overlook, I ironed over by 1 centimeter. And this part now has to be stitched right into that front first side in. Therefore, put it flat down, so practically your single lining is lying away from you, and the lace, including the lining with the interface on, is lying in front of you now. There you got your 15 centimeter cuts that you did for the height, or 16 centimeters if you concerned the 1 centimeter seam on the top. Check them again, put them on top of each other, and now stitch one of the first pieces so the ironed over seam is facing you. That means the right side is lying on top of the right side, and put it directly on your cut that you marked for your fold over later, and stitch it on a little bit less than 1 centimeter, because later on you don't want that seam to show out. And only go to the end of this little part that you got here. Then we do exactly the same on the opposite side. You see, there is the ironed over edges, they're facing you, and the proper sides of the two materials are lying on top of each other. There's your 15 or 16 centimeter cut from the top, which is your fold over from the purse later on. Put all the material nice and flat, because they're not stitched properly together yet. Check it again. Now put it on your cut, your mark that you have, and do exactly the same what you've done on the opposite side with a 7 or 8 millimeter or 5 millimeter, doesn't matter, a stitch. Just hold this in position. That's all you're doing at the moment. As long as you got only those parts on top of each other and the other lining is still far away from you. So now comes the point where we have to check where the opposite sides of the magnets will go. Again, check it, put it in position how it will be finished at the end. It will be folded that way and then that way. So that means put it exactly down there in that cut where it will be folded over later. Now take your top down and look where your first part of the magnets are. Put this little thing out of the way. Now take a pin or a needle or a thread, and how high or how low you will pull that top over is of course your decision. That you can leave it higher up or pull it lower down, but always consider that 1 centimeter seam there is not done yet in the inside. So that's about my position, how I want it, because I want the back to look exactly like that. So I take a pin now, look where my magnet on the upper piece is, and approximately in the middle from my other magnet I put this this pin in, and I do exactly the same on that side. Just put that in position there. So that is the middle of my little plate magnet part that I got in the top there. Now I must make sure to put the other lining out of the way again. So I put this in new, as you see, because before I stitched all the way through. This is no good. I gotta let that one go. So I only got my lining with the interface there and the lace, and you see the little things on the sides sticking over. Now this is my little round magnet part that's got to go there now. Again, I will just take a little bit of tape to hold it in position, and I think I should first of all mark, because I have to take my pin out here. So I will just mark right there where my pin came through, where my little magnet is going to go. That means now I can take the pin out already, mark it again, make sure I'm not losing it, do the same on that side, and I take my pin out, because now I will totally again put the lace away, because I don't want the stitches on top of my lace later on. In which in which direction you put this magnet on, it doesn't matter. It's round as long as you get it directly on your point that you marked. And also here, the magnet is holding onto my machine. Can you see that? So I'm stitching just the tape down now. So my little first magnet there is in position. And there I do, of course, exactly the same. I take some sticky tape again, take my little magnet, my baby neck magnet. Difficult word, huh? I got some problems today with your language. Doesn't want to come rolling over my tongue correctly. Okay, and again I stick this one down. And I stitch along each side once. If you wish, you can also take a bigger one, bigger sellotape, and go all the way around it once. That will really forever hold it firm in position. All right, the most difficult things are done, I think. Check again that you don't see your stitching through there, unless otherwise you would have stitched through the lace, which we said we're not going to do. So now you flap the other side from the lining over on top of your lace. The right side is facing the right side now, and you start down there where you did this invisible stitch earlier on, because now we have to close those 3 sides, and we have to leave somewhere a hole. It doesn't matter where you start, if you sew on the other side, as long as you put exactly your pieces on top of each other with all the edges on top of each other. I allowed 1 centimeter seam when I did the cutting, so that's more or less what I'm stitching. In case if one of your materials stick over a little bit, let it stick over as long as you have your parts flat on your sewing machine. Don't give it any twist or anything, rather let one piece stick over, because sometimes the cutting is not so exactly. If you have 2-3 different or the same parts, they can be slightly different. All right, I think that is the bottom now from my purse here, and I decided to leave one of the sides open. And these little bits of stripes material that we stitched on, those we fold totally in the inside. We're practically stitching over that seam over again that we stitched when we just stitched it on to hold it in position. Again, I'm checking that I'm straight. My magnet is holding back there my machine at the moment. Okay, and the third side, exactly the same. I'm straightening it out, putting everything nice and straight. Keep on checking that. Otherwise, if you think something is pushing or pulling, then take my trick and take any kind of template and hold it under your pressure foot to make a straight line. Okay, and here I gotta leave a hole now, because we got to turn this part inside out. Leave it big enough so you don't need to struggle. And here we are at the end already. Now, slightly cut all 4 corners a little bit. The thicker your material is, the more you should trim the corners. But this is all not so thick, so you don't need to do so much. So I turn this inside out now. I have this trick. I usually go with my thumb in the farthest corner that I have and put one of my fingers against it, and I'm still holding it like that, and then I can just pull the corner out. It works perfectly like that. Put your thumb in all the way in the corner, put one finger against it on the top, and pull it around. Carefully, don't rip your hole, and do exactly the same with all the other corners. Sometimes they turn over so easy that you don't even need to go inside with anything else. Well, look at that. We're almost done with this nice little clutch. You could now consider if you only want to iron it and then stitch the sides up, but I think I would like to finish it off by really stitching all the way around. So that means, again, check everything, put it all nicely and flat. You could now go to the ironing board first and iron it over. This top I'm not going to stitch over at all on the bottom there, and I just start on that bottom now, and I will stitch it just 1 millimeter on the 3 coming sides here. Only that with a nice finished lace. I'm not stitching over. Nicely put edge on edge, or as I said before, go to your ironing board first. Then it's really easy and quickly done by just going along that edge. Now, when you get to your little wingy here that's hanging out, of course we could just stitch over like that. But then when you're carrying the pocket, this lining would always like to slip out. So what we do, we push it underneath and stitch it with the edge in one go underneath in position. That will always stay inside there now nicely, and you will never ever see this lining wanting to come out. Go along the top now, where this nice little edge is lying over, as if it's meant to be done. Well, it is meant to be done like that, but it was only a leftover. That's all it was. Okay, turn in the corner, leave your needle inside the material when you're turning, and now again, take this little wing, put it underneath, make sure it's not showing out on this right proper side that is already finished then totally, and continue all the way to the bottom. This magnet likes to hold on to my machine. So little and so strong. Yep. Here we are. We got to the bottom. Now, check it again. Make sure you're satisfied with your job so far. Now, again, we don't have these 15 centimeters cuts anymore because they're inside now. So I got to measure on my 15 centimeters exactly which I wanted to fold this clutch over. This is correct. And exactly in that corner now is also my little wingy hanging. Ironed over on that edge. So now I put that exactly on the underneath finished edge for my clutch here, because I have to stitch this down. Put yourself some little pins in. Push it exactly into the corner on the bottom. Along the edge, following it upwards. And check it again, look at it before you start the stitching. That's exactly as it will be. Yep. I measure again to make sure I'm still on 15, not that I moved it meanwhile. And slowly I take it under my sewing machine. I just show you again. There it is lying. I hope when you make the picture big that you can see it. Make sure now to do a good back and forward stitching, and also make sure that the lining is not sticking over. Rather stay a touch back from your finished edge so it will not show out on the other side. That wouldn't be nice. And now I stitch all the way into that corner on the bottom. You have to pull the material a little bit to get all the way down there, but it is possible when you make this stripe in the width as I told you. And here you can see already how this nicely looks on that edge there. Beautiful. Of course, exactly the same on the other side. As you now know already how to do this, this should be no problem. Again, your ironed over edge goes flat down. Measure that you're on 15. Otherwise, move it a little bit if you're not exact. And now you start exactly in that corner. Push this material slightly away. Do a good back and forward stitching, otherwise it might open up when you got something inside. Here, stay a little bit away from the edge. Don't have it sticking over to the right side. And there you are on the top. And that is it. There you see your inner pocket. You see the two wingies that made your purse a little bit bigger than a usual clutch that's totally flat and you can't even get a handkerchief into it. I prefer it just a little bit bigger. But you can also change the sides. Instead of cutting it 8, you can cut it 6. Then it goes slightly smaller. And there you see my magnets already pull the purse together right away there. Here we go. That is your little clutch. Well, all I can say now is I really hope you enjoyed my little video on this, giving you ideas for presents for anybody you like and deserve it. And I wish you so much fun. Please try to do it. It's so much fun. Bye for now. Hope to see you soon again.